What's good? I was like, I'm doing a solo show. All right, let's go. I was very confused. All right, what's good, everybody out there in IB Nation? Welcome to another edition of the Irish Breakdown Podcast, Sunday night edition. And this is kind of a primer because I'll say this: more often than not, we do our Upon Further review on Sunday nights. It'll be at 7:00, and that'll be our plan. There'll be I believe I counted 3 that will push to Monday because of traveling from an away game and things like that. So only 3 really are going to be effective. It's going to be A&M, it's going to be Atlanta, and it's going to be LA. Those are the 3 that are going to be effective. We'll push that to Monday at 7, but the rest will all be Sunday at 7:00.
Going to be a little different format this year, but you're going to have to wait till next Monday to find out what that is.
That's right. But we wanted to kind of scratch everybody's itch a little bit on the Sunday night show, and we decided to insert a little bold prediction action. So looking forward to this one. We kind of had some fun with this one, Brian. And remember, we need to remember what a bold prediction is. That's the best way to put it, right? A bold prediction means it's out there. It's out there. It's not we're saying this is going to happen.
I had some guy get mad at me a couple years ago because I predicted that Tyler Buckner would have 4,000 yards of offense. And he's like, well, you're this. And I'm like, it was a bold prediction.
The whole
meant
point,
to be
man.
Fun. But they're fun, but they're also things we think are possible. They're just not normal. So it's like, okay, predicting that Notre Dame is going to make the college football playoff is not a bold prediction. Predicting Riley Leonard's going to pass for 3,000 yards is not really a bold prediction. So we had to have some fun with it, and but again, it's fun. The odds of if all of our bold predictions come true, this is going to be like the greatest season in the history of college football. That's again the kind of the point. But each one individually is something that we do in fact believe could come true. Like it's realistic, but it's going to take a really good season for it to happen, and that's meant to be the point of it. And it could be a negative thing. It could be something really, really like, hey, this is not going to go how you think it's going to go. But I got to say, Vince, before we get into our bold predictions, this is probably the hardest one I've ever done.
Yeah.
Because like all the bold predictions I'm kind of coming up with, I'm like, no, that's not bold enough, because I think that's kind of what a lot of people might be expecting.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So it's like, or, hey, this has been done before, and so last season kind of messed up some things, you know what I mean? So just saying, hey, Notre Dame's going to, set a scoring record. Well, I kind of did that last year, right? So let's try to think of some other things to go with. So I had some fun with it. I know you had some fun with it. Took a while to get put together, man, but we're gonna have some fun. We're gonna do offensive team, then unit, like different unit things, and then we'll go personnel, specific personnel. Then we'll do defensive team, defensive personnel, and then we're gonna do a kind of a final big picture team one, and then throw a couple college football things in there and have some fun with that. So it's gonna be fun, Vince, and I had fun with this, and like you said, this is sort of our getting people ready for the Sunday night shows and what we're going to be doing for our Sunday night shows.
Yeah, and I don't know. I'm going to get your perspective on this, Brian. Everybody's saying it's game week. I know a lot of people start their week on Sunday. I'm more of a Monday guy personally. So to me, game week is Monday because we do the Upon Further review, which is looking back at the game on Saturday. So I'm not ready to call it game week yet, although we're splitting hairs here. That's my personal opinion.
As a coach, Sunday night started game week because we do our breakdowns and our grades, and then we'd bring the players and meet with them, go over the game that we just had. Then we as a staff that night would get together and start breaking down the next game. But you really don't get into game week till you get up on Monday morning for us.
Yeah. Right.
So when you wake up on Monday, it's game week, because we got to put a bow on the game that just got played. And so that's also going to be true here. So this is sort of our last sort of big picture fun look at the team until, starting this week, it's going to be looking at Notre Dame and who they are and what kind of team that they're going to be.
In theory, we get a depth chart tomorrow. So that will, I'm sure, get everybody fired up and excited.
Yeah, I like you said that in theory. We'll
theory. I said theory. You never know. But anyway, Let's kick this thing off, Brian. So we're, like you said, we're gonna go offense first, then we're gonna go defense, then we're gonna go team as a whole. So bold predictions for offense. We're gonna start for the unit. We're gonna do, offensive bold predictions for the entire offense. We each have, 3 or 4, give or take. And then we will transition into bold predictions for individual players offensively and what that looks like. Okay. And then, yes, we are going to completely ignore special teams because that's what we do here at Irish Breakdown. So I just want to throw that out there for anybody that's looking for special teams. I'm joking. No, but we're sticking.
We did have someone comment like they wish we'd talk about special teams more, and I'm like, look,
we talk about it a lot.
Special teams is important, but it's just not something that necessarily drives people to watch our shows and read our content. So.
We will talk plenty of special teams. Don't worry. I was being funny. I was joking just because of my love of special teams because of who lives in my house. But anyway, bottom line.
What was the one clip of your son that you put out this past weekend's game? It wasn't him doing anything special teams related.
Nope.
It was him throwing a football.
He was lined up as a kicker.
And I was like, exactly my point. Exactly my point.
The best part about that, Brian, I don't want to get off tangent too much, but the best part about that play, obviously it was awesome. The outcome was awesome. It was the first time they got brand new lights this year. The LEDs that flash and whatever. That was literally, they had scored 34 points up to that point, had never done the light show. And the athletic director comes up to me after we scored the touchdown, and he says to me, hey, after he kicks this extra point, we're going to fire up the light show, so he better not miss. 10 seconds later, the ball is skirting across the ground because of a bad snap. I'm like, oh, my God, here we go. And then he throws the score. He's excited. Then the lights start going off. I've never seen my kid more excited. I mean, he goes over to the student section. He's getting them all fired up. Like it was a lot of fun. But anyway, so that was the first light show ever at the high school was because of what he did on that play. So that was pretty cool. No one will ever remember that, 20 years from now, but I always will.
No one will ever remember that. You will never forget that.
No, I will never
forget that.
No, it was unbelievable. So anyway, back to Notre Dame. Bold prediction time. Let's talk offensive unit. Brian, how about you go, I go, we'll snake it, and then we'll flip it up every time we roll. So why don't you hit us with the first one?
So I went a little bit more nitty-gritty on some things as opposed to like scoring and things like that, since we kind of saw that last year. And then honestly, I don't know that the offense is going to necessarily set a scoring record again this year, because I do think the schedule is challenging in the way things are going to go. And also for a point of reference, we're doing 12+1 in our team records, because like otherwise there's going to be a ton of records that are going to get set this year. If Notre Dame goes beyond the first round of the playoff and they play a 14th or a 15th game, it's like, okay, yeah, you broke this record, that record, because you played 3 more games. You know what I mean? So I just want to, when we talk about a total prediction, it's always going to include the 12+1 situation. So it'll get past first round. So just want to make sure that we're clear on that.
Yep.
My first one, Vince, is Notre Dame is going to set a sort of I don't want to say modern, but Notre Dame is going to have its best yards per game average since 2005. In 2005, that was under Brady Quinn. Notre Dame went for 477.3 yards per game. So it's basically what I'm saying is they're going to have the most yards per game since I've been born. The 2 highest of what they call the modern era, which was 1993 post, according to Notre Dame. They had 504 in 1968 and 510.5 in 1970. I don't have Notre Dame getting to 500, but I mean they could, but it's more about focusing on that record. So since I've been born, 1978, Notre Dame is going to have their highest yards per game average, which was previously set by Brady Quinn's team in 2005 of 477.3. The closest they've come to that here since that time was in 2015, Mike Denbrock's last year as the offensive coordinator at Notre Dame. They went for 466.4 yards per game. So I did think that was kind of interesting that one of Denbrock's teams has been the highest since Brady Quinn set his record. So that's my number one, Vince, is they're going to have the highest yards per game average since the year I was born in 1978.
Man, okay, that's a good one. I like that one. That means a lot of offense is what that means. Big plays, and it's going to be kind of a staple in the Mike Denbrock offense, which I do appreciate very much. And I know that is what Mike Denbrock is attempting to accomplish as well. So that fits the narrative, as they say. My first one is kind of a similar one to what we've kind of done in the past. And I don't know how bold this is, but they averaged a little over 39 yards, or 39 points per game last year and set the record for points in a game. And I'm saying that they are going to score 40 plus. So that's only one more point a game, but it breaks the record again. So I feel like it's bold because it's breaking the record.
And it's doing something they've never done before.
Right, yeah,
I mean, exactly. I think the only time Notre Dame has ever scored more than 40 points in a game was like 1912.
Right.
And they only played like 8 or 9 games or something like that. And so it's a little bit of a different actually, I'm going to go look that team up, Vince, because I believe they had like a 100-point game.
Oh gosh,
that year.
That helps.
They scored 116 against St. Viator. They scored 74 against Adrian. I coached against Adrian, by the way.
Yeah.
And they scored 69 against Marquette, 47 against St. Louis, 41 against Wabash, 39 against Morris Harvey. They played like one team that we would consider like a real team. That was Pitt, and they beat them 3-0. Pitt went 3-6 that year. So we're talking like truly modern football.
Yeah.
Where they weren't playing high school teams and stuff like that. So
and there are high school teams on their schedule.
There are nursing schools on the schedule. There are like flight schools on the schedule. It's pretty wild.
Hilarious. Yeah, hilarious. So that's my first bold prediction. They're going to break the modern scoring record at Notre Dame. They're going to score 40 or more points throughout the season on average. So that's my first one, Brian.
You ready for my number 2?
I'm always ready. Okay. What do you got?
My number 2, Notre Dame will set an all-time record, modern record, in yards per play. In the current record was set, and it's kind of a sort of a theme here, Vince, but the record was set in 2015 by Mike Denbrock's last offense. The second best mark, and this is since 1967. That's when Notre Dame keeps it in their statistics. The second best mark was last season, so this is kind of like the one you had for scoring.
Gotcha.
It's not like a huge thing, but I do think we're going to see a jump. I do believe Notre Dame is going to break the single season record for yards per play in modern football, which was set in 2015, 7.017. So it rounded up to 7.02. I believe Notre Dame is going to be at least a 7.1 this season.
Okay.
Which would make them one of the 5 best in this country. So like my yards per game average that I went with of 477.3 would make them a top 10 offense based on last year. And what did I say? Did I say 7.1 or 7.2?
2.
7.2 would put him 5th in college football last year. It's behind LSU, Oregon, USC, and Georgia.
Yeah, it would be more than 7.2 because I think 7.2 is the record from last year. I think is what you said.
No, 7.02.
Is
the record.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay,
that's and then right. Last year was 6.95, which rounded up to 7.
Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha.
Yep.
Gotcha. Very good. So another very positive offensive stat. Mine is you could say this one is individual, but it's a combo. And I don't have names attached to it. So that's why I put it into the unit category. I think Notre Dame is going to have I'm going to make sure I say it right here. Okay. I think Notre Dame is going to have a 1,000-yard rusher and a 1,000-yard receiver. And I know that's a bunch. And that's why it's bold. Because if I was putting money on it or something crazy like that, or actually making a prediction, I do think that the ball is going to be spread around enough that maybe a receiver does not get to 1,000 yards. And I could definitely see that being the case. And that may actually be better for the offense.
We have both said that's more likely, Vince.
Yes, absolutely.
Which then by definition makes this a bold prediction.
Bingo. And that's why I said it, because I am predicting that won't happen. That's why it is a bold prediction. I think Notre Dame does get to a 1,000-yard rusher. I think that does happen. But the 1,000-yard receiver is going to be a lot more difficult. But I still wouldn't be overly shocked. I would be a little nervous as to the direction of the offense, honestly, if it happened. I want to see the ball spread around a little bit more. I think that's better for the offense. But I could see a Chris Mitchell. I could see a Jaden Greathouse. I could see them having over 1,000 yards. It is possible. They have the talent. There's no doubt about that. but there's so much talent, in my opinion, in the wide receiver room that I don't think it's going to happen. And so therefore it lies into the bold prediction category. So 1,000-yard rusher, 1,000-yard receiver. That's my bold prediction.
I've been thinking a lot about this, Vince, and I'm starting to come around to the notion that it might actually be less surprising to see a 1,000-yard receiver than a 1,000-yard rusher.
Ooh, okay.
Just because I think there is going to be such a blend between the two backs and Riley Leonard running the football, and just some of my concerns about the O-line,
sure,
and then just feeling like somebody at receiver is going to break out. But that's more, I think, more of the, as we get close to the season, you start overthinking things.
Oh yeah, 100%.
More than anything else. I think that's
100%.
Probably more that was what that.
I
is.
get it. This is where we need football. Like I need to see some empirical evidence of something. Like I need to see something because you're right. We're looking at everything on paper. We're using, Mike Denbrock at LSU. We're using Mike Denbrock at Notre Dame. We're using, Chris Mitchell at his former school, Bo Collins at his former school. Like there's a lot of ifs and there's a lot of questions and there's a lot of like, we've done the research, we've done the sweat equity is there, but it's like, I'd like to see everybody in a gold helmet wearing green and blue and gold. And let's see what happens when they're all working together and all of those different things. So yeah, we need football right now. And luckily 6 days from now, we will not have that excuse and we will be dissecting a game. So, okay, you're up.
Yes, I am up. My next prediction, Vince, is going to be. I want to push back on something that somebody just said in the chat. By the way,
okay.
Somebody just said that 2013 Florida State had 3 1,000-yard receivers and a 1,000-yard rusher. Just saying. I want to push back on that a little bit on a couple things about that. Number one, that's not accurate. They had 2,000-yard receivers and Rashad Green and Kelvin Benjamin. And as we talked about, our statistics go to, and they had 1,000-yard rusher in Devontae Freeman. But I want to point out again that our projection is for 13 games. Kelvin Benjamin in 2013 had his 1,011 yards in 14 games. He had 54 yards in the 14th game. So he didn't go over until the 14th game. And Devontae Freeman, their 1,000-yard running back, ran for 73 yards in their 14th game. He only rushed for 1,016. So in this time frame that we're discussing, they only had 1,000-yard receiver and 0,000-yard rusher. So again, the context of what we're talking about is 12 plus 1, not playing past that. Because if you were to tell me, okay, they're going to be a semifinal team, then I'm like, yeah, I would hope that they would have a 1,000-yard rusher and at least a 1,000-yard receiver.
An extra few games to do it. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. It's like rushing for 1,000 yards back when Jim Brown played was a lot more impressive than rushing for 1,000 yards once they went to 16 games, and certainly now that they play 17 games.
Right.
So just want to make sure that there's some context to what we're talking about there for that one. So my third one, Vince.
Yes.
Notre Dame is going to set a school record, again, modern record. So that's 1939, since 1939, in yards per pass attempt. That record was set in 1964.
Wow.
And that record was 9.5. And I believe Notre Dame is going to go slightly above, like it could be 0.5, 0.9, 0.5, something, but it's still going to be higher than that team. Do you remember who the quarterback was on that team, Vince? It was John. I forget.
Hewart?
Yes. He was the quarterback. Now, he was over 10, but they had their backup quarterback threw 16 passes and was a 2.0. So it brought the overall average down. And interestingly, Notre Dame's offense last year, as bad as it was, had the third best mark since 1939 at 9.1. I think they go over this year. I think they go well above that. And I do think that's a bit of a bold prediction. And so, yes.
Well, when you're setting a record that's been there since the 60s, I mean, that qualifies as a bold prediction, I would say. Yep. So I think you're right there in the boldness of your prediction. I like it. My next one, and I texted you about this, and I went back and I looked at last year's, the issue that we've had with the offense. Look, we're talking about Notre Dame setting records that were kind of set last year, right? And there were good things that happened last year. But everybody will rightfully say they didn't show up in the big games offensively. And that is true. There's no doubt about it. And so I went back and I decided, which were the big games last year. I did include Duke because that ended up being a big game where they really didn't score enough points, to be perfectly honest with you. It was a highly ranked Duke team at the time. And, they put that touchdown across at the very last minute to get them where they needed to go. And so the offense was not good against Duke, right? And so went back. There were 5 big games, in my opinion. Added up the scores, divided them by 5. It ended up being like 25 point something. Now, the 48 points Notre Dame.
Real quick, Vince, which games did you count?
I'm trying to remember. It was.
Did you do NC State?
I did not. I did
okay, so you did
Louisville,
Ohio State,
Duke,
Louisville, and who else?
USC.
Okay,
and
Clemson.
Clemson. Yeah, those are 5. Yep. Those are the 5. So it was like 25.2, I think is what it averaged out to. Now, of course, I was like, that 48 points that Notre Dame put on USC kind of like, ruins the average in a bad way, right? For what I'm trying to accomplish with my bold prediction. But as you aptly said, there were defensive touchdowns in there, and there were also turnovers that happened and put Notre Dame in a good spot.
There was a kick return for a touchdown. Yeah. There was a fumble return for a touchdown. So Notre Dame's offense only scored 34 points in that game, which would actually drag that 5-game average down to 22.6.
Very good.
If you talk about what just the offense scored, because
right.
We're doing an offensive production. So just a little help for you there.
No, I appreciate it. And so they didn't score enough in the big games. I think we can all agree on that, right? And so my bold prediction, and I'm not even sure if it's super bold, but it needs to happen if Notre Dame is going to win the games that they need to win, right? I said that they're going to score 28 or more points in the big games this year, right? So the offense is going to show up when it matters. I wanted to up that to maybe like 30 or something like that, but 28 will do the job, in my opinion, with the defense that Notre Dame has. So I'm okay with keeping it at 28. That's still a significant increase as to where it was. And so 28 plus is my bold prediction offensively for in big games.
So you're saying minimum 28 per average. And do you have any kind of have you thought through this enough? And this could just be, if you haven't, no,
you're
problem.
good.
Like, is there any kind of, they'll score at least X amount in each of those games?
I haven't thought specifically about each game.
Because I'm wondering, do they score 50 in one game and then 10 in another, and then they score 30?
I think when I think of an average in my own peanut brain, when I think of an average, I think of they all need to be 28 or more. That's how I think of it. 28 points in a game, in each of those games needs to happen. Yes, I understand what the word average means. I get it, that there could be 50 and 10. I get that. But in my brain, that means we're talking basement of 28 points in those games to be where they need to be. So.
I dig that.
So maybe average isn't even the right word. You know what I mean? It's hey, Notre Dame's going to score at least 28 points in all big games.
Now that's a bold prediction.
That's what I want to be.
That's even more bold, Vince, than the other one, because like I said, you could score 50 in one and 10 in the other, and then
that would not cut it for me.
If they score at least 28 points in each of those games, this team's going to be hard to beat. That's a good one. That's a good one. This last one, we kind of are doing the same thing, and I made mine kind of in kind of response to yours.
Okay.
So do you want to go first with yours? Because mine's I only had 3. Mine was kind of just having some fun at what Vince's final bold prediction.
Yeah. So I am gonna. Do I keep it at that number, Brian, or do I drop it by 1? That's the question.
Drop it by 1.
That's what I figured too. Okay, that was exactly what I was thinking. All right, Notre Dame offense. All right, there will be at least 3 different offensive line starting lineups this year in those first 13 games. There'll be 3 different starting lineups. Now, that could be that, and what that means is there will be a different 5 in a different position at least 3 times. So that could be somebody moves from one position to another. That could be somebody gets replaced. That could be a million different scenarios. There's 5 different positions. I'm saying that at least 3 times there will be a different lineup from the offensive line this season. So it depends on how you look at it, Brian. This could be looked at as a positive. meaning, guys have beaten other guys out, and they have earned that spot. This could be a negative in that there's injuries. This could, there's some
guys aren't playing well.
It could be coaching malpractice. Like there's a million different ways this could go, but I'm just saying
they had 3 last year. But I think for context of knowing Vince's postseason predictions, last year, you and I would probably agree they really only had 2.
Yes.
Because the third one was a bowl game that people opted
were
out.
Sitting out. Yeah.
They won't. You're talking like normal. They're playing a playoff game. No one's opting out. This
Correct.
is just a more of a true type of thing. So I get that one.
So 3. Can only imagine what the chat is saying right now. I've got it turned off, but I'm saying 3 different offensive line starting lineups.
Mine was Notre Dame will start the same offensive line all season.
Going the opposite with me.
Yeah, it's just having some fun with it. Yeah, just having some fun with it.
Yeah, it's going to be. Look, the offensive line is a huge question mark right now, right? And I think we all have different thoughts about even what it's going to look like on the depth chart when it comes out, if it comes out this week, and what it's going to look like. Who's even going to be the second team offensive line? Like, there are so many questions right now with the offensive line from an experience standpoint, from just all of it. There's so many differences, so many things going on that we just don't know. We just don't know what's going on. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see what is up with this offensive line throughout the whole season. So I am nervous / excited to see what's going on with this offensive line. That's for sure. Let's move on to our next segment, which is the individual offensive player predictions, our bold predictions from an offensive standpoint. And we're doing individual players. And I'm going to go first because we're snaking around here. I'm going to go first. And I mean, how can I not make my first bold prediction about Riley Leonard? Because he's going to be the ultimate stat guy, and that's where I'm at. If Notre Dame is going to be who we think Notre Dame is going to be, Riley Leonard is going to have to put up some stats. And I'm not even sure how bold this is. I already upped it from my original number, but I have that Riley Leonard will surpass, which means more than 3,800 yards of total offense. So throwing, running, he's going to be over 3,800 yards of total offense. So here we go. The season rests on the broad shoulders of Riley Leonard, which, by the way, in person are very broad. He's a big boy. 3,800 plus yards. That's where I'm at.
Vince, I went with Riley Leonard on my first one as well. I have Riley Leonard. I went a little different this one. I was going to do something statistically, but who knows how things are going to go statistically. I have this. Riley Leonard will be a Heisman finalist. He'll be in New York. He'll be Notre Dame's first player in New York since 2012 when Manti was there. So that's where I'm going. That's where I'm going on that one.
Love that. That's fantastic. That's in line with what I'm like.
Yep.
If Riley Leonard has over 3,800 yards, he's probably going to get an invite, I would think.
Yeah.
Notre Dame's going to be pretty successful at that point. So
yeah, I think so.
I like that. My next one is, I didn't attach a specific wide receiver to this, but I said a Notre Dame wide receiver will catch 10 touchdown passes.
Is this a receiver?
A receiver.
Not any pass catcher. So, not a tight end, a wide receiver. Okay.
Specifically wide receiver. Specifically a wide receiver. Because, look, we all know what the tight ends have done at Notre Dame. And look, I love Mitchell Evans. I love, Raritan. I love all those guys. But I'm saying this is going to be a wide receiver renaissance this year. And Riley Leonard's got to throw him to somebody. And I think he's going to spread it around, obviously. But I think a wide receiver has a chance to get into double digits when it comes to touchdown reception.
Do you want to kind of go out on a limb and pick who you think that will be? Because I know who mine is.
Yeah.
If your prediction comes true, I know who mine is. But I want it, since it's your prediction, I want to give you. Oh, is it number?
That's where I'm going. I have a lot of faith.
I thought you're like, don't take my answer. Hold on a second.
Well, that too.
Don't take my answer. Yeah.
I just think number one, I think Jaden Greathouse is poised to have a breakout season.
Touchdown machine, dude. I mean, even last year, I mean, he had 4 in the first 5 games or something like that. Like, guy knows how to get in the end zone. Like, I think he only caught 100%. 1 pass against NC State, and it was a touchdown. I think he only caught 3 passes against Navy, and 2 of them were touchdowns. Like, the kid just knows how to score. And of course, in high school, that's all he did was, he thought 3 passes. The first 3 games of the year, he caught 8 passes. 3 of them went for touchdowns.
Right. Yeah. I feel very good. If somebody's going to do it, it'll be him.
Yeah.
So, all right. What do you got?
My second one is I had to kind of amp this up a little bit in order for it to be bold, since it's something we kind of saw 2 years ago. But I have Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price will both go for over 1,000 yards of offense, not rushing, offense. So rushing and receiving. In order to up the ante a little bit, Vince, I said one of them will have at least 1,200 yards. If I had to bet, it would be Love, because I think he's going to get a lot of receiving options out of the backfield. But I think they're both going to go for over 1,000 yards of offense this season.
Okay.
Now, the reason I had to up it a little bit is because this happened 2 years ago. I mean, Logan Diggs and Audric Estime both went for over 1,000 yards of offense. If you put all yards in there, they actually had 3 guys over 1,000 yards, I believe, in 2022. Chris Tyree had 422 rushing yards in 2022, 444 rushing yards in 2022. He had 138 receiving yards, and then he had actually, no, he didn't go over. I thought he did go over 1,000 yards, but no, he didn't. He went over 1,000. He was at 8. He was at 836. So I thought he was over 1,000, but that's my bad. He was not, but they were close. But I'm going 2 running backs. Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price will both be over 1,000 yards of offense. One of them will be over 1,200 yards this season in a 12+1 circumstance. So
beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Love it. Love it. Love it. My final individual offensive player prediction, and it's a combination of 2 running backs, or actually all of them. That's fine. I said that the running back room will account for more than 5 receiving touchdowns. Now, I'm not sure how bold that is.
How many?
I said 5. It seemed like a lot, but then as I'm reading it out loud, I don't know that it is as many as I think that it is. I think the running backs are going to be involved in the pass game. I was thinking about the top 2 guys, specifically on this one, but I could go with running back room, and that's fine.
Well, running back room in general is not, to your point, is not necessarily overly bold, because they had 5 last year and 5 the year before.
No, there you go. Okay.
So if you want to say just those 2 combined,
I'll up the running back room. I will say over 8.
Yeah, okay. And now that's a little bit more bold. What would have been bold if you'd have said Jeremiah Love's going to have 5 receivers?
Yes, that would have been bold.
That I could have gone with.
That would have absolutely been bold. So I'll say running back room 8.
Here's my last one, and this is probably the most bold pick I'm going to make all day. Okay. Seriously. Of the player and team unit ones, not the team ones, because I went real crazy with the team stuff. But Notre Dame will have an All-American offensive lineman this year. First or second team All-American this year on the offensive line. And I know it's a position a lot of people are concerned about. If I had to make my prediction, it would be Billy Schrouth. But I'm predicting that Notre Dame will have an All-American offensive lineman this year. Now, again, that's kind of against the grain of the sentiment of the offensive line is going to be a struggle and a problem and all this other kind of stuff. But, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
I love that, though. I
wanted to do something on Jaden Greathouse. I wanted to do something on Chris Mitchell, and I wanted to be like Chris Mitchell's going to average over 20 yards a catch and on over 40 catches, and be the first guy since Will Fuller in 15 that had at least 40 catches and averaged 20. I thought about that one, but I was like, I want to do Jaden Greathouse. I actually thought about the 10 touchdown receptions for that one, for Jaden Greathouse, but I didn't have the guts to do it like you did.
Well.
So I went with Riley Leonard will be a Heisman finalist. Love and Price will both go over 1,000 yards of offense, and Billy Schrouth will be an All-American. Or an offensive lineman will be an All-American, and my prediction is that my top prediction will be Billy Schrouth. Okay. But it's it can be anybody. The broader prediction is someone will be a first or second team All-American. And I don't mean on some obscure All-American team. I mean kind of like Howard Cross was last year, where he was a second teamer on like 3 of the big ones.
Right.
So somebody that was kind of my, and I don't mean freshman All-American, I mean All-American, the big dog list.
Right.
That's where I'm at on that one.
Yeah, we'll get